to have a public hearing next month?
So moved.
Motion's been made, we have a second?
Second.
Mr.
Further
Bono,
discussion?
when are you going to be putting the franchise agreement on the website so that the public who are going to participate in the public hearing can actually see the document? Is that possible to get it up there soon?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? That'll be at 7:30. 7:30. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so next month at our regular board meeting, we'll have that public hearing. And Mr. Stokes, the Village of Hamilton has a local law and judge paraphernalia that you give us a copy of?
Statutorily, because you're joining municipality under the village law, and we're giving you notice. The village is doing a comprehensive look at its entire zoning code. One of the issues in particular that the village board is concerned with was essentially head shops. And so in an effort to hopefully preclude any new head shops, there were some in the past that were not necessarily looked on as beneficial to the community, and at the present time have that situation. So they proposed this moratorium on those types of businesses. It's a one-year moratorium. The idea being that in the meantime, the committee that's reviewing the zoning code can evaluate whether there's a need in the zoning ordinance to regulate those types of businesses in a way that wouldn't have deleterious impact on the community. That is under consideration by the village board. The next meeting is next week. It'll be considered that. I don't know whether the county planning agency reviewed it, sent it back to local determination. If you have any questions on there, if you'd like to answer.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
On to our resolution. What do you have for me, Sally?
Are we still in discussion regarding this? Patty made the motion, right?
Yeah.
And I seconded it. But I was wondering, we were just kind of, maybe we should give ourselves more time to June versus May. I mean, they're still researching what they can do for the school and so forth. Maybe we need a little more information on that. And maybe we could resend their motion and restate it to June, or is this something that has to be immediate?
Well, it's kind of like a question about the land. There's a lot of pieces that have to come together. And if you miss any of those pieces, you know, it has a serious impact on the project. So one of those is that we have to have these franchise agreements with the towns. But what I would suggest is if you would have a public hearing next month, if there's questions, there's nothing that says you have to act on it that month, or if you didn't have enough information, you could continue it over. But I'd really appreciate if we at least get that process started.
The resolution is just to have a public hearing.
Yeah, all right, as long as, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Resolution be used by the officers of Town Board, Town of Madison, Madison County, State of New York. Whereas Supervisor Ron Bono, Town of Madison, does hereby make the following resolution. Therefore, it be resolved on this 11th day of April, 2013, by above the town officers do submit to the Town Board for their consideration and approval of the following resolution. Whereas the April bills have been submitted for payment, now therefore be it resolved that the Board authorizes Supervisor Bono to move monies from Berkshire Money Market amount in the amount of, how much is it? So that's what's on there. $37,125.29 in the proper income tax. Someone to move this resolution for adoption? Roll call vote. Move it. for me? Yeah, well, we did this in a motion, we can do a resolution, I guess. Does this need, Jim Lee?
Yes.
That's what it's called.
Does that need to be in the resolution form to have the public hearing? Or is there a motion?
Well, motion's fine.
Okay.
Question is, before, I mean, if it's just the franchise that goes on the website, if we want to find out more information regarding pipeline and the composition of gas, like, you know, hydrofrac sources and stuff like that, should we contact them, Mr. Stokes, directly?
Correct.
Okay.
A resolution be used by Oshkosh Town Board, Town of Madison, Madison County, State of New York. Whereas Supervisor Ron Bono, Town of Madison, does hereby make the following resolution, therefore be resolved on this 11th day of April 2013. I, Town Officer, do hereby submit to this board for their consideration and approval. Whereas the water supply 7216 Lakeview Drive, owned by Michelle and Jennifer Murphy, is found to be located on Town of Madison property. Now therefore be resolved that the board authorizes Supervisor Bono to enter into an easement agreement for as long as said water supply is located on town property. This is what we were talking about, that well. Motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
And roll call vote?
Mr. Ruder.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Dixon.
Yes.
Mr. Bono.
Yes.
Ms. Yes.
Okay, resolution? All righty. We will go into public presentation. John Mancino had presentation. John, here this evening?
My name is John Mancino. I'm a member of the planning board, and I just got some observations over the past few months of this process. It seems like some people think the wind law should have just been passed without the other board members' comments, suggestions, and input. In the spirit of democracy, should the other board members have their say? If Madison Matters says this isn't about who wants wind power and who doesn't, but instead what's best for our community, then why would Jane Welch say at one of our wind law meetings that she'd rather pay more in taxes than have wind turbines in our town? I'm sure the majority of our community would certainly disagree with her. We've had more than 30 of these machines in this area for years, and no one has been sick, nor have I heard any reports of dead birds, eagles, or bats laying at the bases of these. Early on in this process, I went to McCormick Road site with Dave Perry, and I agreed turbines don't belong up there. I asked Dave what he thought a good compromise would be, and he said, I don't give a damn where they put them, as long as it's not in my backyard. I think there's others that feel there may be other places they can go, though. Most of the problems can be mitigated and with proper regulation kept under control. This town could certainly use tax revenue, where landowners could benefit also. It seems like when Madison Matters doesn't get their way, or the answers they want, they accuse us of underhand practices. I've watched you accuse Supervisor Bono, the town board, and the planning board of things that just aren't true. The accusations of gender discrimination, accusing people of being bought by the wind company. Is it out of paranoia, or do you have another agenda? At the March planning board meeting, I was 10 minutes late. I apologize, but I kept thinking the meeting was at 7:30 instead of 7. When I got there, there were several people still there. I publicly apologized and asked if we could open the meeting back up. I was doing this as a courtesy to the people that had come out there. We did open it back up. After the meeting was closed, several people hung around and talked casually. There was people from Madison Matters, planning board, and community members. Next thing you know, we're accused of having a hot meeting and an illegal meeting after that. This is the biggest project we've ever worked on, and this isn't an easy job. There are a lot of hard decisions that have to be made without having to be intimidated by Madison Matters. When I joined the planning board, I had one goal in mind, to do the best I can for this community. That goal has not changed. In the spirit of democracy, if you really feel this isn't about who wants wind power and who doesn't, I ask that we find a way to compromise so those who want turbines on their property could possibly have them, and those who don't are not disturbed. We need to quit all the finger pointing and false accusations, and let's get down to the business we need to have. Thank you.
Nancy Reese, you have to be on the agenda.
to the public that might better be handled in writing, but since no responses have been forthcoming to any requests to talk about these things, I bring this to the town board meeting. I'm Nancy Reese, a resident of the town of Madison. Supervisor Bono and members of the town board, I speak tonight on behalf of Madison residents concerned about the ethics of governance in our town. Ethical practices are important every day, but they're critically important as we face the decisions and ad hoc appointments that will come along because of Article 10. We recognize that governing is difficult. When multinational energy firms materialize in a small town bearing big promises, it is particularly challenging to steer a clear ethical course and to determine the boundaries of legality and ethics in your dealings with that entity. New York's general municipal law specifies what constitutes a conflict of interest, and I imagine that Attorney Getman is advising you on the legalities of your procedures, and that you are all confident that everything you're doing is legal. In addition to the general municipal law, New York State requires towns to have a code of ethics and requires that all elected and appointed board members be familiar with their town's code. I trust that in the past weeks you've all reread the Madison Code of Ethics adopted in 1970. The New York State Attorney General's Office sent a letter in 2011 inquiring as to whether the town has an established ethics board or if it instead forwards ethics questions to the county ethics board. How did you answer the Attorney General's question? Can you tell us which procedure the town board uses to adjudicate ethical matters? Can you tell us which procedure the town board uses to adjudicate ethical matters of governance?
Town board has code of ethics, which when that request came from the state, they were sent a copy of the long-established code of ethics of the town. So if there is an ethical question, it would come to the town supervisor or town board.
Yes, the letter from Martin Mack of November 2011.
And that went to every municipality in the state.
Asks that you also advise as to whether your town has an established ethics board or, as the law permits, ethic matters are referred to your county ethics board. I'm asking whether we have an established ethics board or whether we refer ethical questions to the county. How do we adjudicate ethical matters in the town of Madison? Do we have a process for doing that?
The ethics board would be the town board. No. The ethics board would be the town board, the same as we don't have a separate board of fire commissioners for the town other than the village. The town board acts as many of those boards.
Pursuant to General Municipal Law 808 and 808 and 1 and 3, the governing body of a county, city, town, or village is authorized to establish a board of ethics. The town board, as far as everything I've read in the state documents, shows that the town board does not act as its own ethics board. That would make no sense. It would be judging your own ethical behavior. As far as everything that the Attorney General's office puts out is concerned, you have to have a separate independent ethics board or a procedure by which you refer ethical questions to the county. And I can give you a copy of that letter, but I mean that we're both referencing the same letter. So I'm going to go on. If you notice this, there are several places that I've just read in a letter from Martin Mack, 2011. This is the one that we're both referencing, I believe. And if you look carefully, I can send you all of the links. There is a very clear statement in the New York State, in a number of different places in New York State Attorney Generals, that specifies that towns need to have a board of ethics to adjudicate matters that may be brought forward because of the code of ethics. So I want to keep going. Last year, Patricia Bukowski recused herself from discussion and voting on wind-related matters because the lease held in her family might seem to constitute a conflict of interest. We all appreciate your honesty and integrity, that you showed in making the decision to recuse yourself. You all remember that she has recused herself on several occasions, I presume. You recall, you have recused yourself
On that particular project.
on that particular project?
Not every windmill project, just that one project.
Right, right, because of the specific conflict of interest. Why does the principle of no conflict of interest apply to a member of the town board, but not to a member of the planning board? Last
May I
month.
answer that question?
Yes.
Just because we have received, all the town board members have received your letter, and we've done some research on it to make sure we were correct. And the issue had actually been discussed before the meeting of the planning board. The fact is, Mr. Waterman is a new member of the planning board. The discussions of the planning board are advisory only. The Wind Advisory Board is an advisory board to the planning board. The planning board is an advisory board of the town board. It does not make any determinations. The wind law affects a general law, not a particular project. So there is not a conflict of interest there any more than most of the people in this room have an opinion with regard to wind energy. And so everyone is going to have a position whether they are on the board or not. And just because you have a position on a topic does not make you an improper member of that board.
Having a lease is different from having an opinion.
Not when you do not have any decision-making power.
Okay,
This board, the town board, is the board that will make the final decision with regard to the wind energy. Mr. Waterman only is presenting his opinions with regard to that proposed local law, just as Madison Manors and everyone else has presented their opinions with regard to that wind law.
There is a variety of opinion available on whether members of planning boards should recuse themselves from both from particular matters of decision and approval or from matters of legislation.
And I believe that
And
they're
I'm
not
going to submit for your,
appropriate. You may
Did
submit
any of
them.
you recuse yourself from the wind law committee?
All right, why are there 4 Madison Matters members? on the
Why
Wind Law
were
Committee?
you
Same
4
ethical
on that
conflict.
wind law committee?
They were appointed by the board.
Wait a minute, whoa, this is not a debate, discussion and answer. You can do a presentation.
last month in the middle of a period of critical discussion of the Wind Committee report and the draft wind law, the town board unanimously chose Doug Waterman to serve on the planning board. Mr. Waterman has granted EDP an option to lease his property for which he has received good and valuable consideration as the contract reads, and from which he has promised even more financial gain when EDP exercises that option to build a turbine. Were members of the town board informed of his lease when they unanimously voted him onto the planning board? Did you not recognize this to be a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest equivalent to that which caused Patty Bukowski to recuse herself from discussion of wind issues? Appointed planning board members are held to the same ethical standards as elected town board officials. Why did you select someone for the planning board who has a lease option, not just an opinion, with a wind energy company in the middle of our important deliberations? Can you explain how that is not a conflict of interest comparable to the one that caused Ms. Bukowski to recuse herself? How are these situations really different in an ethical situation? With what I know to be the support of many other residents of the town, I ask that you request Mr. Waterman to recuse himself from any further discussions of the wind law, as well as from any votes on the law or anything related